good. We did. We got through the technology issue. So
that was barely an issue.
That was yeah, it was just a little hiccup.
Just a hiccup, a speed bump.
Just a little hiccup. So for those of our friends that are joining us live, and I'm going to apologize up front that if you're watching us live on Facebook, it's really hard for me to see the comments coming in and focus on Theresa here. So if I don't answer comments until after we go off of the live, please forgive me. That's just that's the way it is. I have to focus on one thing at a time. So first thing I want to do is, Theresa, I want to thank you for joining me today and being willing to share yourself with my community. For my community, Theresa is just an amazing woman. First off, I don't know how she does it. She is a military spouse. She has a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and twins that are going into first grade, along with a golden doodle. You said a golden doodle that keeps you busy. That to me sounds like an extremely full schedule. So our topic tonight is on time management. And I think that's awesome, because I think everyone needs better management of their time. And you have to know this firsthand. I mean, I just can't imagine having 4 little kids and a dog and a husband, a military spouse, because we know that military spouses aren't always there to be 100% support in the home. They're sometimes gone away. So that's just amazing. So can you just share with us a little bit? You had some really interesting concepts on time management. I like what you said about time management. It really isn't time management, but how did you describe that to me?
I think I may have said it's not as much about time management as it is about mind management. Or you can't really have one without the other if you really want to be successful in whatever your version is of success.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And for me, I'm all about health and wellness, and my focus is on nutrition. Mm-hmm. But for me, there's so much more to health and wellness than just nutrition. And stress plays a huge part in our overall health. Stress can impact our health. It can impact our immune function. It impacts our sleep, and then then that again impacts our immune function and everything else. So we can get ill actually if we are stressed. And I think time management is very important to help us better manage ourselves and our stress level. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that everything you do is wrapped up in time, right? I mean, you cannot separate time from how you go through your day. So I think that when you look at it through that lens, it becomes really clear how our choices, our decisions, our values are all wrapped up into how we spend our time. And when you're really focused on health and wellness, and like you said, it's not just about nutrition. That's certainly a big part of it, but health can mean so many things, like you pointed out. And if you are really overwhelmed and feel like you are, you never have enough time for not just, meal planning or meal prepping or the grocery shopping or exercise, but also for yourself to be able to decompress, to take a break, to pour into yourself and do things that help you feel fulfilled, help you feel energized, then, that's when you are getting very limited results with all of that hard work that you're putting into trying to live your best life, your, healthiest, nutritious, well, balanced life.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think, bottom line is we all have the same amount of time. There's 24 hours in a day. We have to have time for sleep. So that's going to cut into that time quite a bit. So what do you suggest to people when they feel that their time is out of control or they just don't have time to get it all done?
Yes. So I think one of the first things that I talk about with my coaching clients is about really, and sometimes this is not what people want to hear, but it's about taking responsibility and taking ownership for the choices that you're making in how you're spending your time. So the first step is really, and I don't mean to sound, very cliche, but the first step really is recognizing that there is more that you have control over when it comes to how you spend your time than we may think, or than we may want to think. Because if we decide, if we can agree on, okay, yeah, we do have more control over our time, then that opens up the door for having to maybe make some uncomfortable or difficult decisions, things like saying no to things, or saying not right now to things, or, it opens up the door for maybe some uncomfortable conversations and some hard decisions. But at the end of the day, if we aren't recognizing that we do have some sense of control over how we spend our time, then any strategy I give my client is going to be pretty limited in terms of efficacy, because I could give you all these great time management strategies, like setting timers, having a to-do list, and, calendar system and all that kind of stuff. But if you aren't recognizing that the start of it begins with you, internally, then that stuff is only going to take you so far.
Absolutely. I absolutely, I can see that. Now, what would you say would be the most important way for somebody to prioritize their time, or prioritize the activities of their day that are getting in the way of their time?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think the first thing that I have clients do in order to kind of figure that out, how to prioritize, is I'll often do some sort of a values and needs assessment. So just sort of like a self-reflection on, what are the things that are truly, truly important to you? What is something that you really value? And then what are the things that you really need? And there's a little bit of a difference there. Sometimes they can be the same, but I'll give you an example. For me, family is one of my core values. And that's, of course, my kids are so young. And that's why I got in. One of the reasons why I got into time management coaching was because I wanted to make sure that I was spending the time that I wanted to spend with them and taking advantage of these moments while they are young, because I know they won't be young forever. So one of my core values, of course, is family, but one of my needs is alone time. Like if I do not have that in a day, even if it's just 10 minutes of quiet and alone, then I can't function at my best. I'm not showing up as my best self. So really being clear on what your values are, what your needs are, and then figuring out, okay, how are we going to incorporate those and make sure that we are working them into your schedule. And I think all of this sounds really good in theory, but what comes up so often is that mom guilt, or that women guilt. We as women, we as moms just tend to feel like, oh, I can't do that for myself. I can't. I have all these other things I have to do. So that's where that mind management comes in, is changing the mindset about being worthy of your time. You yourself are worthy of your time.
I absolutely love that, because I was guilty for many, many years when I was raising my children of not giving myself time, that what I call self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I recognize that now that my children are grown, that self-care is critical. It really is critical for all moms. So how do we relieve them of that guilt? Because because I see that in so many moms, that they're doing for their children, and they're doing for their husband, and they're doing for their family, their jobs and everything else, but they're not taking time for themselves. And it's kind of like that oxygen mask theory, on the airplane. You got to put your own oxygen mask on first. You got to take care of yourself first to take care of your family. So, how do you get your moms or your women to focus on giving themselves that little bit of time? It doesn't have to be hours a day, but they have that little bit of quiet time, that little bit of alone time every day.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing like that I heard you say about like a little bit, it could just be a little bit of time. So one suggestion is maybe redefining or thinking in a different way about what we mean by self-care and how what self-care can look like. So of course it can look different for every person. We all have our needs and all of that. But I'm talking about, for the busy, overwhelmed female, the busy mom, really thinking about, okay, maybe just 5 to 10 minutes is enough, or at least better than nothing for right now. So we always often start small, and I'll try and, choose the path of least resistance. If
Mhm.
you're feeling really resistant to the idea of leaving the house and leaving the kids there and going out and doing something totally for yourself, if that brings up a lot for you, then let's not start there. Let's start with like a 10 or 20-minute thing that whatever you decide, and we might decide that together, whatever you feel like would be a safe place to begin. And then once you see that the world doesn't stop turning, it's okay. Like everyone survived. Then we can gradually increase things and maybe change it up a little bit. So that's the first thing I would suggest, is starting small and rethinking or redefining what we mean by self-care.
Right.
And then I also think that when you do it and you see the benefits of it and you experience the benefits of it, it helps you to recognize the importance of doing something like that.
Right.
And I also think about it from my children's perspective. Like one day I remember standing, not sitting, standing over the kitchen sink with like a plate of food while I'm trying to get the kids all fed at the table. And I'm just sort of like, shoveling a meal in because I'm like, this is the only chance I have to eat. And it like occurred to me how I hated how it felt, but I was looking at myself through their eyes. Like they're all there sitting, eating. And then here I am like, oh, I have to hurry, hurry, hurry. Because I have to do
Yeah.
this, and I have to feed them all. And I was like, I don't want them to see that. I don't want them to think that that's what they need to do when they're parents, when they're, older. And if I'm trying to teach them that it's okay to like sit down and enjoy your meal and to eat with intent and to not be, shoveling food in and trying to rush to the next thing, I have to practice that. So when I really started thinking about it through that perspective and how they look at it and what I want for them when they are moms, it helps me make some different choices.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Looking at it, looking at it through their eyes. I mean, I know as a parent, when my children were younger, I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that was my time. I would have some time before it was time to wake them up to get them ready for the day. So that would be my time to sit down and have my cup of tea, get my exercise in, and all of that. The problem I had with it was I was also staying up late to get things done at night. So I wasn't going to bed till 11, 12 o'clock at night and getting up at 5 a.m. And that 5 hours, 6 hours of sleep, it is not healthy. It's not healthy at all. And it was impacting my health in ways I didn't even know at the time,
Mhm.
things that started to surface later. So how do you, how do how do we manage? How do we manage to get everything done? That's my big question, is how do we do it?
The first thing I'm like, okay, we don't get everything done. So trying to for some women, and I say this with the utmost respect, and I am one when I say this, but so many of us are sort of that like high achiever personality, and we value, or we define maybe our self-worth. Our self-worth is wrapped up in how many things can we get done and how on top of everything can we stay. And when we aren't on top of those things, and when the laundry's piled up and the dishes are in the sink and we're late to the doctor's appointment and we don't get the kid to the soccer game on time and the soccer uniform isn't clean, it's like your self-worth just sort of takes a hit, right? So
Absolutely.
trying to really disconnect that and say, wait a second, that's not at all what's important. That's not at all tied into your value as a mom, your value as a wife, your value as a human, whatever. So really shifting the expectations a bit and saying what's realistic and what is the cost of trying to hit those expectations, because you could try and do that. I'm sure you've been there, right? But it comes at a price, like you said. And eventually, sooner or later, you're going to burn out. You're going to be unhappy. You're just not living your healthiest, best life. And to waste our time like that in that cycle is so disappointing and sad. And I don't want that for anybody. And don't get me wrong, we have periods of that. Of course, we're like in the busy season and all of that. But overall, that was like the big thing for me, was that I truly did. Once I became a mom, I saw time differently. And I felt like time is so much more valuable. I believe like that it was my most valuable resource. And I was very, very intentional with how I spend it. And I still am. And it's not like this perfect scenario by any means. It is always a work in progress. And there are days my husband and kids can attest. There are days when I'm doing okay with it. And there are days when things aren't going so well. But the biggest, I think the biggest learning lesson, the lesson that I learned is really that my value is not defined by my productivity. It's not defined by what I get done.
I love that. And I think that goes back then to why you said that it's really not about time management, but it's about your mindset first. And I love that. I mean, I really do love that, because I think we do put too much pressure on ourselves to achieve more than we really can accomplish in a normal day. And it does play on our health in the long run. It does play on our health. It shows up in migraines, in weight, and all types of things. We're seeing such a rise in so many issues with women with autoimmune issues and things like this, which I think really stem from running ourselves ragged, not getting the sleep we need, and putting all this extra stress burden on us, trying to be superwoman all the time. And
right. And for what?
Yeah. Why?
For what? What is we think that other people expect this from us, or we think we see other people doing it. And so we need to sort of keep up with the status quo. But, it's just, like I said, it comes at a cost, and to me, it just isn't worth it.
I love that. Yeah. Well, we don't need to be Instagram perfect, do we?
Exactly.
And that's I think that's part of the problem with society is everybody thinks we have to be this picture perfect family, or this you have to have picture perfect house and picture perfect life. And
absolutely,
life isn't like that, is it?
No, it's just, that's a story that we tell ourselves.
I love that. I love that. I love your approach to time management. I just absolutely love that. Now, I want to kind of switch topics a little bit, because I was curious too, because you didn't start out in this field. You started out as a speech pathologist, right?
Yes.
And you made the jump, or you made the switch to a time management coach as you became a mother. So that I find very interesting. I find that very interesting. Was that a hard transition to make?
Yes and no. I technically still identify as a speech pathologist. I still have that identity, and I still kind of tap into that, and I still do a couple of things that are in that realm. But what I was noticing, it was sort of two big pieces of that puzzle. The first was that I built a private practice. I set up a private practice before I had my family. And I then had my four kids, and I had them very close together. And as my practice was growing, my family was growing, and it was very difficult to feel like, again, that high achiever personality, to feel like I was very happy and proud of the practice and happy and proud of the family and feeling on top of things. So that was a struggle. And I watched other colleagues of mine, practice owners as well, struggling with that. And so I got really interested in, what was going on and internally with myself, and how I could maybe structure my time a little bit more efficiently, more effectively. So I made some changes. And then I realized, okay, well, I could help other people do this as well. But then when it really took hold for me was during COVID, when I think like so many people, right, we all found ourselves, of course, in this unimaginable situation no one had predicted. And so we're all sort of reevaluating. Many,
Yes.
many of us are reevaluating our life choices and our what's important to ourselves, to us and our values and all of that. And I just wasn't enjoying speech the way that I was before. So that was kind of like I had to have like a total honest moment with myself and say, okay, well, what do I want to do? And this just felt like such a natural fit. And oddly enough, or maybe not, there are many things that I did in that career that carried over into this career. So things like when it comes to time management, a lot of time management falls under the umbrella of executive functioning skills. So looking at how the brain is operating and the different parts of the brain that are at play. And that was a big part of my field, my career in speech. So I kind of took that knowledge of executive functioning and brought it with me. And most of my clients, or many of my coaching clients, are speech pathologists. So I get to still work with the field or with people in the field that I love. So it's kind of a perfect balance.
Nice. I like that. I think that the COVID pandemic did bring, it really forced a lot of people to reevaluate their life and see what was important to them. And yeah, in fact, you had said something in my little questionnaire that really cracked me up about,
Oh yeah, I know what you're going to say.
yeah, is there any experience you think everyone should be required to have, and what is it? I just loved that one, your answer to that.
Yes. I think my husband's probably not within earshot, although I've said this to him. I said that I think that couples should have to spend quarantine together, spend some time in quarantine together before you get married. And you will learn a lot about each other and some decisions will be made.
Yes, I love that, because that is the reality. You know, that is reality in relationships. Until you are in close quarters for any extended period of time, you really don't know a person, and you start to learn what gets on our nerves and how do we deal with that. Yeah, I just love the answer to that. But so if you had just one piece of advice that you could give the moms out there that are listening, that are pulling their hair out, wondering how to manage themselves, what would that one piece of advice be?
Oh, that's such a good question. So if I had one piece of advice to give to moms, I would say that it does not have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be as overwhelming and stressful as it is. And I think believing in the possibility that you can go through life and feel a lower level of stress on a daily basis, that is available to you, it's not a lie. Like it really is a possibility, but you need to know that it's a possibility and you need to believe that it's a possibility. Otherwise you're not going to try.
Right.
So I think that would be the biggest piece of advice is just knowing that it truly doesn't have to be this hard. And it just kind of thinking about that helps us to be a little bit more thoughtful and much more intentional about our choices when it comes to how we spend our time.
I love that. I love that. That's a good way for us to wind up here, because what I'm going to say is, if you are feeling that stress, then I would recommend reaching out to Theresa, because she can help you with that. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually do a screen share with some contact information, so that anybody that wants to reach out to you can just screenshot it and they would have the ability to reach out to you. So let me see if I can do this. Again, I'm still dealing with technology.
I am really impressed, Terry. Like I said,
There.
you did it.
Well, we don't have the full screen. You can see a little bit of my background there, but here, I'll blow it up even more. There. Okay. So So that way now, if anyone wants to reach you, they can reach Theresa by email. You can find her on Facebook. She's got a beautiful Facebook page you can follow. And then I put her Calendly information there in case you want to book a time with Theresa. So, and you've also got my information there. Most of the people in my community know how to reach me, but just in case, I like to put that information out there as well. So giving everybody a couple seconds here to take that screenshot before I stop our live feed and stop our recording. But I do want to say, Theresa, thank you so much for your time this evening, because I find what your information has been very valuable to me. And I know, even though I don't have small children at home anymore, I mean, my kids are all grown and now I'm dealing with grandkids, and I don't have to manage, my time is a lot different now, but I still can remember what it was like raising kids. My kids weren't as close together in age as yours. I didn't have them boom, boom, boom. I have 3 that are 7 years between each of them. Mm-hmm. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge in any, no matter where you are in your life. If you're raising a family, your time is not your own, and it's a challenge. And I wish I had met you back then, because I really could have used some of your sage advice. I think I put too much pressure on myself to get it all done and not ask for help. I think that's another thing that we are guilty of as moms, or as women in general, is we don't ask for help. And there's no shame in asking for help, even if it's just asking your partner to take on some duties. Asking your kids to do, as they get older. Yours are still very young, but as the kids get older, kids can have responsibilities, and they can help out, and there's no shame in asking for that help. So,
and they're not mind readers, so you do ask. As much as I wish my husband was a mind reader many times, not all the time, but many times, they don't know unless you ask. So
that is so true. And we want them to, we think that they should
just do it on their own.
Yeah, we think, oh, well, why can't they recognize that I need help with this?
It's not going to happen. Just let that go. And
let it go. Exactly. Let it go. Speak up. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't expect anyone to read your mind. With that, I'm going to stop our recording here. Let's see. Again, I've got to deal with these little buttons. I got to stop the share first. Okay. I got to stop the share, stop the live. Okay. And now stop the recording.